It's Thursday, July 29th, and time for your Barbados Today morning news update. We begin with a reminder that vaccines do not prevent people from contracting COVID-19, but they can significantly reduce the likelihood of serious illness or death. It's coming from the Director of Isolation Facilities, Dr. Forde, who is worried that people are being lulled into a false sense of security about the danger posed by the deadly virus. He is also concerned that many are still misinformed about the potential benefits of taking the COVID-19 vaccine. Dr. Forde said, while vaccinated people are still being diagnosed with COVID-19, the vast majority of them have been able to stay clear of the intensive care unit, ventilators, and assisted oxygen. He revealed that on Wednesday morning, 23 fully vaccinated people, 3 partially vaccinated people, 27 unvaccinated adults, and 18 children were in tertiary isolation, meaning that they are either asymptomatic or experiencing mild symptoms. He further disclosed that there were no fully vaccinated people in secondary care, which caters to symptomatic patients. One vaccinated person with underlying health issues was in primary isolation, he said, where patients are in need of intensive care. Central Bank Governor Cleviston Haynes has dismissed the notion that recent data showing the number of people who are considered unemployed in Barbados was not a true reflection of the situation. Unemployment for the first 3 months was estimated to have reached 17.2%, an indication that some 22,000 people were in search of work, especially youth and women. However, with several individuals, including opposition Senator Caswell Franklin, raising questions about whether the unemployment rate was higher than reported, Haynes explained that those who were not actively seeking gainful employment were not counted in the numbers.
When we looked at what happened in 2013 when we had layoffs, I think what happened last year when the COVID struck, and I think also what has happened early this year, is that each time that there was this sort of major event, the number of persons who are not offering themselves for work actually increases. And that will sort of, in a sense, bias the unemployment rate down. And there's nothing to say that that is not a legitimate statistic. It just means that for a period of time, and so somebody may say, well, for the next 3 months, I don't want to work. Children are home at this point in time. I'm going to stay home until, let's say, school restarts. And so that influences the overall number that you get. And that is why I think for individuals, it might appear as though there's a disconnect between what they see on the ground and what the statistics are saying. And let me say that our situation is not unique. In other countries, the same thing has happened. Certainly last year, I think it was Canada, I think, is one country I can think of, where those who were not offering themselves for work went up dramatically after the crisis. But that happens for a period of time, and then persons come back into the labor force. So it's not that somebody is playing with the numbers. This is just the pattern of behavior that individuals have.
Barbados is open to business even in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic. That's according to Minister of Energy, Small Business and Entrepreneurship, Kerry Simmons, as he welcomed international brand Starbucks Coffee Company to the country. The Starbucks Barbados Cafe, located in 1 Haggett Hall, will officially open to the public on Friday. At Wednesday's official launch, Simmons said while the COVID-19 pandemic had crippled Barbados's economy over the past year, it was encouraging to see investors still viewed the country as an ideal destination to set up business.
I have mentioned COVID, but COVID is also one of the challenges we have to face. The Prime Minister, the Welcome Permanent Secretary, Prime Minister frequently reminds us of the fact that we have had to endure our first hurricane in over 60 years. She continues to remind us of the fact that though we have no volcano, we we've had to manage the fallout of a volcano, and the worst of its type in over 100 years. And it goes on and on. And it is because of that total set of circumstances and the reality of the way in which our economic performance has been checked in a way that would ordinarily happen, that we have to be mindful that our story up to this point has been really about dealing with deferred investment in Barbados, coping with distressed businesses, trying to make sure that those distressed businesses do not become failed businesses, and basically stabilizing the Barbados economy. It is vitally important, therefore, that an investment of this nature, which comes at the right time, sends the right type of signal that Barbados is open for business, and that Barbados will continue to be open for business in spite of the very sobering backdrop.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from our regional neighbors now, the Bahamas government says it will employ over 100 more nurses and other healthcare workers in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis made the announcement last night in a national address.
To augment and to complement the staffing dedicated to the COVID-19 response, an additional 49 medical staff, along with 111 nurses and nursing support staff, will be hired shortly. The total cost of these new hires amounts to $7.1 million. Our plan is to engage as many trained professionals as possible to provide health care to Bahamians and residents, and to get shots in arms as quickly as possible as our vaccine supply increases. We are also calling on all retired nurses, doctors, and pharmacists to come forward and assist in this, our time of need.
The Prime Minister said officials are currently working on getting the Pfizer vaccine, which will be made available to 12 to 17-year-olds in the country with the consent of parents.
We have been notified by the Pan American Health Organization that the third tranche of prepaid vaccines made up of 33,600 doses of AstraZeneca through the COVAX facility is expected to arrive in the Bahamas next week. We are also working very closely with CARICOM and the United States government regarding a donation of vaccines from the United States government. I have been in direct communication with the Secretary General of CARICOM to ensure that there is no delay in the Bahamas receiving these vaccines. As soon as we have supplies, the Pfizer vaccine will be offered to 12 to 17-year-olds only with the consent of their parents or guardians.
And finally, the COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted essential health services in most countries and territories in Latin America and the Caribbean. That's according to Director of the Pan American Health Organization, Dr. Carissa Etienne, who warned that the situation is threatening the immunization of children, care of expectant mothers, and people with chronic conditions. These services, Dr. Etienne said, are not optional, and as such, countries must maintain them even as they control COVID-19 outbreaks.
Disruptions at the first level of care have worsened over the course of this pandemic, and the consequences have been devastating, particularly for routine immunizations. More than 300,000 children, mostly in Brazil and Mexico, missed out on their routine immunizations last year, leaving them vulnerable to deadly yet preventable infections. We are seeing as well dangerous drops in measles vaccinations throughout our region. Coverage of the first dose of measles vaccines dropped by 10% in 8 countries in the Americas, including Venezuela, Panama, and Brazil, and dropped by as much as 20% in Suriname. If we do not reverse these trends, we risk an avalanche of worsening health issues in the Americas. Soon, COVID-19 will not be the only health crisis demanding countries' attention. We therefore urge countries to ensure their COVID-19 responses do not leave other essential services, health services, like routine immunizations behind.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.